Return, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America. Hello, this is Safani Pappas with B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarner, Executive Director. And we're going to part 2 with Susie Boyle, who is with Fostering the Family that you're on the board of directors with. Isn't that right, Al?
That's right. So we're going back to Tegakay, South Carolina, and get more of Susie's story. Now we're going to pick up where she's talking about Justin and Alexis Black, authors of a book, Redefining Normal. Both of these are former foster kids. Both of them went to college. And as Susie said, the stats will tell you only 3% of foster children ever go to college. And these two young people beat the odds. How they beat the odds? Well, let me just recommend their book, Redefining Normal. And it will tell you, it's an amazing book. It's a heartbreaking book. It will explain why ministries like Fostering the Family and others are in existence to fill a gap and meet real needs. In fact, doing the work that our Savior called us to do. So let's go on to Tegakay and let's continue our conversation with Susie Boyle.
You know, these kids fall into this very, very slim statistic of kids that went to college. I think it's 3% of foster kids graduate from college. That's pretty low. But we also know that there's always opportunity for them to have some, first of all, some faith in Jesus, for them to know that they are loved and that God has a plan for their life, which is a huge piece. But in an earthly way, to have one person in your corner can change the entire trajectory of your life. And I think I'd like to believe that for Kennedy, it was more than one person, not to pat myself on the back, but our entire family, our extended family, and other people that she's come across, teachers or my friend, our friends, our church people who have loved up on her in various ways to let her know that God definitely put her here for a reason, and he is not done with her yet. And today she is trying to be the light to somebody in her family struggling. But, that is a big thing that we talk about in our families, just being the light. There's a lot of people who need it. So,
and I know some of the statistics as well. South Carolina has about 4,500 children in foster care. That's from age 0 to 18 when they age out. And the question is, what can be done to change the statistics, to reduce that number, to break the cycle?
Well, there's lots of things that can be done, right? But, one of the main things that Fostering the Family does is we ignite the church. And we believe that if we ignited the church, because there is so many, especially here in the Bible Belts, that we could stop a lot of this, right? We could, we'd like to think it would be over, but we'll always have a cycle going on. But with the amount of kids that we could adopt, the amount of kids that we could help through foster care, if we raise up the church, the trajectory of that is endless. And it doesn't mean, and hear this, it doesn't mean you have to foster, right? Because not everyone is called to foster. And I think that's one of our most significant messages is you can be a foster parent if you are called. You can be a guardian ad litem if you are called. But you also can use your time, you can use your resources, you can use your other talents to wrap yourself around a foster family. And you can cook for them and you can babysit for them. And the amount of things that you can do to help the foster care system is absolutely endless. And there actually is not a person who doesn't have anything to offer, right? We all have something. I don't care if it's $5. You can pray for them. You can, it is endless, the need, and every person matters.
Yes. So one of the things I like about Fostering the Family is the care community model. My wife and I are part of the care community for a foster family in our church. We provide a meal once a month. Sometimes calls go out to, babysit so the parents can go have a time on their own, have a date or something like that. Sometimes it's as simple as going to mow the yard. Anything we might think is just natural upkeep of a home. Well, it can be more complicated if you've got one or two or three foster children and they've got appointments, they've got court dates, they've got so many things going on, supervised visits with the biological parents. So anything that could be done to take a little bit of the pressure off. So I have seen it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest reasons for that is, if you can imagine, 50% of these families without support will quit fostering after 1 year. 50%. And they have decided this is their passion, and they've gone through hours and hours of training, and they have prepared themselves, they believe, for this journey. It is not easy. It is a calling. It is super important, but it is not easy, right? But if I am doing it solo and I am tired, it is very, very different than having an entire care community around me, praying for me, making me dinner, letting me go somewhere with my husband. It's irreplaceable, that. And we find that when they have a care community, 90% of foster parents will then stay after a first year. And that is a pretty big statistic improvement.
We use the term the church, wanting to get the church ignited to come around foster and adoptive families. What does the church mean?
I mean, to me, the church means the people. I mean, you can look at it as many ways as you want to, but to me, it just means those who are spiritually called. And I mean, it doesn't just have to be the church as you see it. It can be community of people who care. I mean, I feel like, as I had mentioned, everyone is called to do something, and we believe we all are better together.
That's it. We're better together. Well, let me just ask about how many partner churches on any level, and I know there are 3 different levels of partnership with fostering the family. How many churches, how many denominations?
Do we have?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a question.
Yeah, if even just the different denominations represented, how many?
Several different denominations, right? It doesn't matter what denomination, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we are open to partnering with the church, and we're also open to partnering with communities. We're open to partnering with people in business, people who are called, people who have been involved and hurt in the foster care system. We are open to just partnering with people who care as much as we do about this crisis that is somewhat silent. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't even know. And, I'm really grateful that you're doing this podcast, because we like to get the word out there that, you know what, this isn't a problem that's far away from you. This isn't a problem in a different country. This is a problem in your backyard. And if you're listening, it doesn't matter what backyard you're in. This is a problem. And we need to rise up and help fix it. Because if we don't, future generations, these are the children, these are the broken children that we're sending out, who end up homeless, who end up in jail, who end up, in broken families. The cycle continues unless we bring the love of Jesus to them.
Amen. Now, you've seen it firsthand in Michigan and South Carolina. And when you say it's in everyone's backyard, yes, it doesn't matter what city, what town you're in, what country you're in. Several years ago, we had Roger Skinani on Reunion Roadmap telling us about the problem in Uganda, his country. Mm-hmm. And so when I asked the question about what does the church mean, that's the people of God. Because after all, who is better equipped to do this, and who should be doing this, but the ones who are to be the hands and feet of our Messiah, of our God, instruments of his peace. If that's what we proclaim, then why aren't we doing it? And And by the way, if the only thing that keeps us from doing it is because we are in our little doctrinal circle here, I'm on my soapbox, by the way. If we're in our little doctrinal lane here and we can't deal with those people in their doctrinal lane over there, but in the meantime, there's a child in need and it takes both congregations to help, well, can we just step up and meet the need? And we'll talk Bible later and doctrine later. That's fine. But if we serve the same Savior, we should be able to do what he's called us to do, regardless of the specifics of how we understand his word. Okay, enough of my soapbox. Here's another fascinating thing I've seen with fostering the family and entering into the nonprofit world in South Carolina. It is the networking and the intersection with other nonprofits, other ministries, and government agencies. Could you address that and tell me, Susie, what have you seen and what have you experienced with this?
I guess for me, when I look at all that, and I feel like my own personal calling is, I used to say I was like a people gatherer. Like the more people, the better, right? And we're a foster care bridge ministry, and I love that part because that means we bridge anyone and everyone who can be bridged, right? I mean, we work hand in hand with the Department of Social Services here. Really, we've done a lot in York County, but not just ourselves. We've done it through the church, with our partner churches, with Founded in Truth, with Elevation. We've had people step up and say, you know what? When you're in DSS, the Department of Social Services is a very, very stressful job. As a guardian ad litem, and somebody comes to me with a case of a child and it's really stressful, and I think maybe it's not my calling, I can say, you know what? I bet there's another guardian that is better suited to that case. My experience is a little bit different. I'm not sure that's a great fit for me. But you know what? Department of Social Services, they don't have that ability. They have an entire caseload, whether they're good at it or not, whether the caseload magnitude is too high, whether they're experienced, whether they're just out of college. They have these children and they have to make sure that nothing else happens to them because they are in their custody. So if our churches can wrap themselves around even the Department of Social Services by, we brought them we helped serve them Thanksgiving meals this year. Founded in Truth helped bring them breakfast with Chick-fil-A, right? They also offered them massages and different things to just care about them as a community. And I think that is one of the greatest things about fostering a family, being a bridge community. And we also reach out to others. We've talked with the Guardian ad litem program. We've had them at our events so they can bring on people. We've had Defend the Fatherless. We have talked with the Brightside Ranch. These are all, ministries around us. The least of these Carolinas, all of these are ministries around us that we want to work with and help so we can just touch as many people as possible. And you know what? There's enough people out there that need it, that the more that we work together, being the hands and feet of Jesus for the least of these, we can change the world. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, change the world. When you think about, let's say, one family, one that is can't stay together, the kids have to be put in the system. What does that intersect? And this is what I've seen. It intersects the DSS, the government. It intersects with the law enforcement, local sheriff, city police. How about if there's abuse, women's shelters? If there's a crisis pregnancy, it impacts that. If there's prison involved, there are so many things that this, touches.
I did read a statistic that said per child, it was $1 million expense to the economy. And I don't mean to say that like the expense to the economy is more significant than the child, because it absolutely isn't. But if you look at that in any kind of financial way, and for the record, I also have an accounting degree, so I am a math person, $1 million for one child, like the ramifications of just not loving them well, we can do better and we need to. Yes,
we do. Let me ask you about an event that happened recently with one of our foster families. and biological parents of one of their children who got out of jail. Then what happened?
And one of our foster families tried to assist, right?
Right.
Tried to assist. And I mean, as a foster parent, you're taking care of the biological children of this biological family. It's not necessarily your job to take care of the biological parents, though sometimes you feel called, but that's a heavy burden. And whether it's to help them get their car out of somewhere or to help them find a place to live because they end up on the street, we need more resources, because to put that kind of stress on a foster family who is trying to take care of children is really a lot. And I guess it is a questionable situation in some ways, because who is responsible when these people get on the street? And I mean, I feel like in some ways we're all responsible. Like those who have the means, if you can assist while this foster family is taking care of the kids, it probably is a lot easier than a foster family trying to help, the biological parents of the kids that are in their home. That's a lot to ask of anyone.
That it is. And in this particular case, I lost count of the number of agencies, ministries, churches that got involved trying to find shelter for this couple and trying to help them get their car out of impound. And that's the crisis just to get started. And meanwhile, the foster family is still looking after the child. So it does impact the entire community. Well, here's another. Tell us about Shop with a Cop.
Shop with a Cop. Shop with a Cop is when you have the opportunity as a foster child, right, to go into some place which they decide and have the cop shop with you so that you can actually form a relationship that is positive in the community. I think it's just one of those extra things that can be done that can change the trajectory of the city by putting cops in a different light, as well as having children believe that there's trustable, somebody trustworthy that cares about them. It's just a great idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea that you look at, like I did, and think, why didn't we think of this before?
Yeah.
Just have a day where you can provide opportunity for positive relationships, positive adult role models.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it shows another avenue of indirectly affecting the foster care system. I mean, there's so many ways, and I think we sit around and brainstorm all the time. Well, we're doing this, or what are other things that we can do that totally look outside the box? It's not that you just have to be a foster parent, right? There's many, many ways in the community to mentor to children who are in desperate need of it.
Yes. Yeah. And the key thing is having the heart and being willing to devote whatever you've got.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, Susie, how could we get in touch with Fostering the Family and find out more?
www.fosteringthefamily.org. You'll find us on Facebook. You'll find us on Instagram. On Instagram, we do have a link tree, and you can go to, click on it in the bio, and it can lead you to all different ways of just getting in touch with us. If you feel called to join our awesome event on March 24th, we would love to have some people partner as table hosts, as people who sponsor. You can just attend. There's lots of ways to get involved. And if you just want to go in there and donate, you can click a button for that too. And if you just want to go in there and get in touch with us, there's contact information.
And for those who are not in South Carolina, we do have a link to the umbrella organization that we partner with. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, Promise 686. Yeah, they're actually in Atlanta, but they we are a partner with them, as are many other bridge ministries in the United States. And so you don't have to just do it local, though we'd love all the local support we could get. But if you're from somewhere else and you feel called to do it in your backyard, then that's awesome too. You could go on the Promise 686 website and find out more information.
Well, Susie Boyle, thank you so much for telling us a little bit about your story and letting us hear some of your heart. And thanks for the good work you're doing for the children of our community.
Thank you for having me. I totally appreciate it.
Here is Melody Joy singing Hope from her album Awakening.
When I hungered, you fed me again, and I was a stranger
Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the mid-rush portion of Reunion Roadmap. This is David Jones. With me today is Barry Phillips. Shalom, brother.
Shalom, right back at you.
Got a quick question for you, Barry.
Okay.
Do you like the heat?
I prefer it over the cold.
How hot do you like it, Barry? How about, you like a Florida hot, Texas hot, Nashville hot chicken? Sorry, that got in there somehow. I don't know. But I'm thinking altar hot, like fire, coals, burning fiery coals, Isaiah 6 kind of hot. Do you like it? Do you like it hot?
Let's not go overboard.
I think of Romans 12. It says that to put ourselves down as a living sacrifice, and we can jump more into that in a minute. But the problem is a living sacrifice would keep trying to get away from the heat, would keep trying to climb down off the altar, would try to get away from the fire. We don't want these things to be burned, but yet the essence of the offerings called the korbanot in scripture, and we might ride that, I don't know, we'll see where it goes, but the essence of that is the same kind of a thing. It represents the person who is bringing it. And I submit to you Leviticus chapter 1 and verse 2. Speak to the children of Israel and say, if any man of you bring an offering to Yahweh. So if this is how it is to be translated, where it says, if any man of you bring, if that's how it's supposed to be translated, in the Hebrew it would read, Adam mechem ki yakriv. But it's not written that way in the scripture. In the scripture, it's written as Adam ki yakriv mechem, which literally would translate any man of you when he offers an offering of you. So this puts a switch on the emphasis. The essence of the sacrifice, the offering, the korban that we bring, it's a representation of ourselves, our blood, sweat, and tears, something that we bring to the altar as a representation of us, like King David. So will I offer to Yahweh something that cost me nothing? The essence of bringing the korban is so that we are represented, brought near to the Father. It is something that is birthed out of our heart and relationship, not a matter of, okay, well, something's going to die today and it's me or this animal. That was never the point. The point is, it's a picture of you coming into the presence of Yahweh. When we bring the offering, we're laying ourselves down. And so there's a few different directions, a few different ways that we got going on here, Barry. So what do you think? Which way do you want to take this?
Something you said a moment ago reminded me of Psalms 118, verse 27. Yahweh is El, and he gave us light. Bind the festival offering or sacrifice with cords to the horn of the slaughter place. As you are relating how that the korban, the near approaching, we translate it sacrifice or offering. The Hebrew there is korban, and it's a word that says this is how we approach him. This is a gaining near proximity to the Most High by means of that. If it is ourselves, if we are to present ourselves as a living offering, a living sacrifice, an olah, that's the first offering that is talked about in Leviticus 1. It's the ascension offering, the whole offering, the burnt offering, the elevation offering. All of those terms apply. It's the offering that is presented and the whole thing is consumed. The priest doesn't get any portion of it. The presenter doesn't. It's all burned to Yah. And so that's what I think Romans 12 is referencing, is that we present ourselves completely holy and without remnant portion of ourselves to him. In order to accomplish that, David, sometimes you got to tie yourself down. That means discipline. It means self-discipline. That means saying, I don't belong to myself anymore. I've been bought with a price. I am my master's completely, and my life is for him. So that kind of takes us, if I can find it real quick, it takes us over to Galatians 2:20. I have been impaled with Messiah, and I no longer live, but Messiah lives in me. And that which I now live in the flesh, I live by belief in the Son of Elohim who loved me and gave himself for me. So our lives then become for the purpose of revealing Messiah, who has become our life. That's all theoretical, lofty preaching. It makes for good preaching. How do we do that practically? And that is, in my estimation, at least, only accomplished by living a life of self-discipline, not to the place of being, what's the word? I want to say Essene. It's not necessarily Essene. Being like the monks that were taking a vow of silence and walked the rest of their lives with their hands folded and saying nothing. I don't think the Father is looking for that. He's looking for one who focuses on the fact my life's purpose is to exhibit the character and the heart of my Messiah in every way that I can consciously do that. So that's at least a start.
Yeah, that's a lot to really think about. This discipline's a big area on there. I mean, I die daily, right? And that's something that we need to consider. How do we do that? And still back to the Romans 12 theme. So how do we live that way? I mean, he says to present your bodies as a living sacrifice. This is your spiritual worship. Some translations put, some say reasonable service, different things. But it's worship when we give of all of ourselves. It's not like I'm going to put part of myself on the altar. No, we lay ourselves there. We are his completely and totally. How do we do that practically, as you were just stating? Well, if we go on in Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world. Okay, but that still begs the question. So how do we do that? Like on a day-to-day practical, how do we do that? It's not like, God is asking you to go hide away and be in a cave and never be around anybody. No, he wants you to be a witness for him and share the kingdom here. So how do we do that in the world and not start to become like the world and have its influences there? And that comes into, we become like where our focus is. We become what we behold, where our heart is, where our desires are, where our focus is, where we spend the time is what we become like more than anything else. So where are we spending the most time? Where is our focus? Where is the things of our heart? It says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So how do we do that? Renewing of our mind, that's the discerning. That's being in the word constantly. If we're not there, then we're not going to be able to discern. We're not going to be able to see what's going on, but we do lay our lives down so that we can see what is good and acceptable and perfect. And that is the day-to-day thing. We're discerning daily the things of our life.
There is an understanding from what I am aware of that when one presented an animal for slaughter, that they were to lay their hands upon it. And I think Rashi is the one who comments that they would lean forward on the animal to where they were putting a sense of their own weight on the head of the animal. When the priest made the cut on the throat of the animal and the blood began to drain, eventually weakness would hit the animal where it would drop to its front legs would fold under it. And it is when that sudden drop of the animal from under the presenter's hands took place that you begin to realize an animal is shedding its blood for me to be able to draw near to the Most High. the sacrifice, David, was not about killing the animal as much as it is releasing the life of the animal present in its blood. It's not killing, it's releasing life. That's the proper way to look at it. When we understand that we identify with what is being presented, Yah is not asking, just kill yourself, just die completely to yourself. No, we're releasing the life that is resident in us to ascend to a higher purpose. The animal that was presented was just an animal. And then you realize by offering it, I'm elevating this animal to its highest possible potential. And that's what happens when we present ourselves. We elevate ourselves to our highest available potential by releasing the life of Messiah in us. It's kind of like Yeshua's trapped inside, said, let me out, let me out. I need to be released in you. The whole process, though, is the availability of Yah's presence. It's a drawing near to him.
So the essence of this drawing near really, again, comes back to life and how do we live it? How is our life representing him? We know that with the animal, the blood went to the altar and the fire, the smoke, everything, literally into the presence of Yahweh. We are represented in the aspect of there in his presence. But here, Yeshua laid his life down so that we could come into the presence of the Most High. And it's by the means of his blood, which wasn't just about his death, because he resurrected. See? Because without the resurrection, I think it would be a completely different story. So it's because of the life that we have life, not just because of death. It's because of that. And I think, here, I'm thinking along the lines of like Micah 6, where it says, what does God require of you? Do justice, love kindness, walk humbly.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we lay our life down. This is how we live our lives according to Yahweh. This is how we do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed, renewing ourselves in his presence by thinking on these things. What things? Him, his presence, his life, his kingdom, his ways, his mitzvot, his word, his Torah, and Yeshua and his life and what he's done for us. When we focus on these things, it becomes a little easier to lay our life down and live our life. Because when we lay our lives down, our life isn't over. I think that's the emphasis in Romans 12, the living sacrifice. So we have to live as a sacrifice. Our lives are laid down. And like you said, it doesn't mean our lives are over. It means we now have a different way. Now the focus of our life is on worship. The focus of our life is being in the presence of Yahweh. And that affects how we do everything else.
One last thought. Romans 12 also includes the thought that this presentation of yourself as a living korban, a living sacrifice, it is your reasonable act of worship. It's not, Yah is not asking of us something that is beyond a reasonable request. He's not asking of us that which we're incapable of accomplishing. In light of what Yeshua has already done for us, following his example, it's reasonable. In fact, if he had required more, something even beyond, he is our creator. Our only response could be, what else may I present to you, Master?
What a good way to end this, to bring us out. It's a great way to close us up. Guys, we love to hear from you. We love your thoughts and your feedback on what you hear in here. So if you want to get in touch with us, you can do so at Reunion Roadmap at BneiYosefNA.com. So until next time, shalom.
Shalom, y'all.
Here is Solomon Lopez and the Hebraism Music Project singing In Your Mercy, available at Hebraism.org.
You rebuild Yerushalayim. You rebuild Ephraim. You rebuild Yehuda and all of Israel. rebuild Yerushalayim. You rebuild Ephraim. You rebuild Yehuda and all of Israel. And in our days, soon, and in our days. Baruch atah, Baruch atah Yehovah, blessed are you, O Yah. You rebuild us in your mercy. You rebuild us. You rebuild us in your mercy. You rebuild Yerushalayim. In your mercy, you rebuild all of Ephraim. In your mercy, you rebuild all of Yehuda. In your mercy, you rebuild all of Israel. In your mercy. and you're rid of all our bitterness. You separate light from darkness. You stand in when we're accused, and you're rid of our envy and jealousy. Your whole love, yes, your whole love, your whole love casts out all fear. Your whole love casts out all fear. In your mercy, in your mercy, in your mercy, you rebuild me. In your mercy, you restore me.
Solomon Lopez with his song In Your Mercy. And before that, Melody Joy with her song Hope, one of her early songs. And in the middle, we had Barry Phillips and David Jones bringing us an interesting look at Romans 12, 1 and 2, where the apostle is beseeching us, brethren, I learned it in the King James, to present ourselves a living sacrifice, and applying to that the concept of the Ola offering. Stefania, did you have anything to add or comment on that midrash?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. We talk about these different concepts, and we were discussing this actually before we started recording. And I mentioned about the idea of burning out, and then you mentioned what about that we need to be burned up. Why don't you comment on that? I really liked what you said.
Yeah, well, it's so easy that we can be burned out. That happens to every one of us. But what our elders are talking about is our entire existence is at the disposal of our Creator and Redeemer. And just as the Ola offering, that is the whole burnt offering, the one that is completely consumed on the altar, it is burned up as an offering of worship and praise to our Creator. That's what we're called to be. That's what Paul is envisioning when he says this in Romans 12, 1 and 2. So instead of being burned out and useless for no one, it just occurred to me, maybe that's equating to being salt that has lost its flavor, which is good for nothing. If you're burned out, you're not good for anything. But if you're burned up in the service of our God, then that praises him. And not only that, it accomplishes his purposes for us on the earth by alleviating suffering, by making a difference for good in people's lives, by bringing others to him, to the altar where they can make their own transactions and become united with him and totally transform their identity by an encounter with the living God. So that's the difference between burned out and burned up, I believe.
Well, with that, if you go onto our website, there is the donate button. So don't forget to hit that donate button if you really appreciate what we are doing, because it will really help us out to continue to do what we're doing and all the other projects we have going on.
Yes. And so that wraps up our show for this edition of Reunion Roadmap. This is Al McCarn on behalf of Stefania Pappas, Barry Phillips, and David Jones. Thank you very much for joining us. Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef, North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.